We are happy to bring in our guest for today, Red Wings coach Derek Lalonde, who, let's see, we're coming off a Bills win yesterday. That seems like that's an important fact here. How are we doing?
I'm good.
What do you think of that game last night?
Some nervous moments. I did text I was unable to watch it, the first half at least. And I just had to text my guy, Todd Beam, what's going on. And he does not use his phone during the game. He shuts himself off to the rest of the world. That's how involved.
That sounds about right.
That sounds about right. So
it's a smart move.
Good win for the Bills Mafia.
You know, there was a point where, so Todd, for those who don't know, is the Red Wings head of PR. My early years on the beat, so I'm a big NFL fan, and I've had Josh Allen in fantasy several times, and so I would be trying to text Todd during the game, and at one point I texted him something, maybe assuming a victory a little too early, and it was a reversal, and I learned right then to not play that game with Todd.
He's passionate. There's no doubt about that.
I'm a big Stephon Diggs guy. Maryland. I'm a Terp.
Yeah, love it.
He let me down from a fantasy standpoint last night, but that's fine. Yeah. We can move on. Maxie.
Yeah, I mean, so we're coming off of a press conference here, so I don't want to get too redundant with you, but what's kind of your feeling right now coming off of this road trip? I know it's a 2-1-1 trip. You'll take that almost every time in the NHL, but these are your measuring stick games right now against the elite teams. What are you learning about your team?
Yeah, mixed emotions in some ways. Again, going into it, if someone would have told me we would have been 2-1-1, taken 5 of the 8 points. I think most teams around the league would have taken that with this type of road trip. But just left a little bad taste in your mouth on Saturday with only getting the 1 point. Big picture, it's fine, but that game was just a little too familiar in that we played a really good 5-on-5 game. Our compete was there. Our execution for the most part was there. And then even our execution overtime was there. We just turned the puck over and just handed it away. So a little frustrating that we left that point out there, and we've left too many out there between overtime and the shootout. But all in all, kind of reflects our season. Good, not great. And what's exciting for me is I think it left the boys wanting a little bit more and maybe have a little bit more of expectations for themselves.
I know we've talked about kind of how the various moments at this year where it's maybe looked ahead of schedule, and then you have some nights where, it looks like, maybe what some people expected. I'm curious, have you kind of gotten to the place where you feel like maybe this is a little ahead of schedule of what you thought when you took the job?
Yeah, I've done a pretty good job. I've cautioned my guys about living in the moment, and I've done a good job of doing it for myself and my staff also. But yeah, this feels ahead of schedule. But do you get your moments of reality? Until beating Tampa and taking a point in Dallas, we have struggled against the elite lately, and not play wise, just finding ways to win. I just think the margin of error is even more thin when you play those elite teams. But with that said, I like where we're at as a group. I know I keep getting the playoff question time and time, and that's good. We want to get questions like that because that means we're at least in the conversation. But when I talk about being realistic, a little of it is ourselves as a team. I want to be realistic, but it's also our conference. And I stated that from day one. I believe we have the 11th win percentage in the league right now, and we're outside the playoffs. And that's no knock on us or our guys. It's almost a credit of where the Eastern Conference is and how deep it is. If we were in the West, maybe we'd have a little bit different conversation, but we went 2-1-1 on this road trip and we lost ground.
Yeah.
And so I want to be cautious in where we're at, kind of keep it in the moment, because I still think there's going to be some rough roads. We talk about all the forward injuries we've had, but knock on wood, we've been very lucky with not having many injuries or few, if any, on D, and our goaltending's been healthy. So Still want to be cautious. We have a long ways to go. Just looking to be more consistent and stay consistent as a team.
Is that, I think I know Max kind of alluded to this, but is there a point during the season where the approach, depending on where you are in the standings, will change? Like, are you like, okay, if it's January 15th and we're still in the discussion, like we need to recalibrate here and kind of change maybe the definition of what success is, or is that just kind of an immutable thing, like from now until the end of the go here?
I honestly don't think so.
Yeah.
It might even be right to the last game of the year if we're still in the mix of flirting with it. And really, it's just, where we're at. There's no need to really even talk about it. Again, realistically on where we are as a team, realistically on, where our roster is compared to some of those teams that we will be battling for those quote unquote last playoff spots. So I think our guys have accepted the fact that we're going to judge ourselves on performance. We're going to judge ourselves in the moment. And so far there's been good buy-in with it, and it's been real for them.
I'm curious, Derek, you're coming from a situation in Tampa where when you guys brought talented young players in, they were not expected to be huge load carriers for you guys right away. Mikhail Sergachev, great young defenseman there. You had Victor Hedman and Ryan McDonough in front of him. And I'm curious how you think it affects the development or what it does, or what the pros and cons are, I guess, even of that situation for Lucas Raymond and Moritz Seider, who for you guys they're just gonna be asked to play a bigger role than, and Sergachev obviously played a ton of minutes, but able to be sheltered a little.
Well, that's a great question. First and foremost, when you look at Tampa, you have to give the organization a whole on their development of younger players. And that goes to Benoit Gru, the Syracuse staff. It goes to the development department. But it's a little different acclimating young players into a team when your top end is so elite. No matter what forward comes in, people are like, oh, Tampa just grows these prospects on trees. Well, it's easy to come in a third line 12-minute role when Cooch and Point and Stammer are already eating up all those minutes. Right. It's easy to come in for Sergachev and these guys played great, and they did a great job immediately in the National Hockey League. But when Hedman and McDonough are eating all your minutes, it's just different here in that, we've asked Mo to play in every situation, 25 minutes, number one power play at times, number one penalty kill, the toughest matchup. Raymond, same thing, top line, top six. It's a little bit different. But there's still different ways of acclimating young players into the league, and it's the reality of it. It's a different NHL. You have to develop on the fly, and you don't have the luxury of today's cap of, Detroit for years. Guys would play 200 games in the American Hockey League that might have been NHL ready. You don't have that luxury anymore. There is a little bit of developing on the fly, and I think we did that in Tampa. It was a great experience for me to see how that was done in Tampa, and we're trying to do the same thing here in Detroit.
How does that work? How does that work for a player like Seider, who was just, unbelievable last year? I don't want to say that he surprised people, but for him to be, on the peripheral of, the expectations for him were outsized, I think, for his second year based on what we saw from him last year. He's people are throwing Norris, discussion, talking points around, at the start of the season. How do you, and development isn't linear, and we know all that stuff, progress isn't linear with players, but how do you keep him on, how do you even figure out what the track is for somebody who showed as much as we saw from him last season in his second year, and keeping it realistic and attainable for someone who is as great as he was as a rookie? Yeah,
I think it's our job as a coaching staff not to judge him on expectations, literally his day-to-day game. Perfect example, he was excellent the other day. He was arguably one of the better players on the ice. How can you not leave that Dallas game and be like, he's going to be an absolute superstar someday? But it's still judging him on a couple mistakes, managing his game. And he's had games this year where he's had high volume of turnovers. He has games where he's done poor with his gapping. He's done games where he's mismanaged the puck, some egregious turnovers. It's just you're treating it on an everyday basis. I think what's different with that type of player, and you don't have the luxury of giving him 150 games in the American Hockey League,
Right.
is practice time. Like he still has to develop in practice. Our skating coach was in town today. He spent 30 minutes with the skating coach on top of a 50-minute practice, on top of an extra 10 minutes working the offensive line with the puck. It's just a reality of, is that productive in a day before back-to-back? Not ideal, but where we need him to be in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, you might even go back a little bit on playing a back-to-back on what we asked of him today in practice. Again, that's kind of my point on developing on the fly, just so it looks a little bit different today's NHL.
Have you seen any kind of frustration from him or from Lucas in terms of, expectations for them, maybe even unfairly high coming into the year?
Yeah, unfairly high is real.
Absolutely.
But yes, there's frustration in both the guys, but I like that because they have high expectations of themselves. And all the greats, when they've gone to being a great, it's usually because of their own expectations. They want to be great. So I think, of course, there's some expectation. We're sitting back as a coach in this league. Bob Bugner, having played and coached in this league. Alex Tanguay, coached, played 1,100 games in this league. We know they're going to go through ups and downs. It's just too hard of a league. Of course, you're right. The superstars, established superstars, have ups and downs in their games, night in and night out. It's just such a competitive league. So it's not surprising us, but it's new for them too. They're going to have off nights. They're going to have frustration nights. Well, it's how they handle them, how we handle them, and then how you get more consistency in their game. So yes, there has been frustration, but to me, that's just natural progression.
When you moved here, I think it's really cool. Like, you chose to live downtown. I can't think of a lot of coaches or even players who are here who have done that. I'm curious, how does that shaped how, your first few months in the city, how you've gotten to know the city, living downtown?
It's been phenomenal. Not ideal because I'm not with my family. We kind of had a pact with my family long ago. When you go down this coaching path, we'd always stay together. And we did that through our moves from Toledo to Des Moines to Tampa. Here, just, it was not realistic. School started literally August 3rd in Tampa. And we tried for about 40 minutes to put everything in motion. And it was the most stressful 40 minutes of my life. Remember Jeff Blatchell driving to Tampa. He brought the whole family, and he was going through hell week of getting kids in school, getting their minor hockey. And he's like, Newsy, you're the smartest guy I've ever met. So not ideal. And that they're here, they're going to make the move. We'll do the suburb thing next year with the family. But it was an easy decision to live downtown, and it's more than I expected. It's been phenomenal. Half our staff lives downtown. Drapes last week rolled his eyes, couldn't believe we're all living downtown. It's just he's been here. Just people moved to the suburb. Yeah. I live in the Midtown area. These guys live downtown. It's been phenomenal. Restaurants, just living the day. It's been awesome. It's opened my eyes to how great this city is, and it's been a great experience.
Can I get a restaurant recommendation for Detroit? Because I don't trust Max when it comes to this stuff. He's led me astray before. I'm
the Selden. The Selden is right around the corner in Midtown. I can't remember the exact Selden. It's the restaurant right there. It's phenomenal. Mm-hmm. It's as nice and great food, different plates, and I've never shied away from the odd dive bar now and then.
There we go. I love it. Perfect.
A ton of them. The Cobb's are around the corner from me. The Bronx over there in Midtown.
Bronx has a great burger. Have you had
phenomenal.
that burger?
And honestly, they've been great spots, but phenomenal people. Stumbled onto Mario's, which is literally pitching wedge from my house. Phenomenal restaurant. And it's we laugh. We're on a downtown tour of the downtown coaching staff, and it's been phenomenal.
That's great. So you're 27 games in here. I'm sure there was an assessment period of the team in the after you took the job going into the preseason, where you have certain ideas about guys in the team, certain expectations. I want to know I'm curious if there's anybody who surprised you in particular in terms of the player you're getting, in terms of the guy you're getting. Like who is the surprise assessment here?
I would say, God, a majority of the guys in a good way. Some of the new signings, Ben Sherratt, is giving us way more than what I expected, and knowing we were going to get a pretty good player. Ole Mata, on what he has given us. Obviously, Kubalik and the offense he's given us. David Perron, the new guys mixed in with some of the expectations of the returners. For me, I like judging us on how we're playing. And yes, right now, the wins and losses, the points percentage is well ahead of probably what anyone expected. I mean, you see all the projections. We're well ahead of it, so that's a positive. But in the games that we've been successful, we're playing the right way. We're not turning pucks over. I mean, we went through a handful of games. We've literally turned over 17, 18 pucks in a game. The league average is 29. I remember in Tampa, it was almost to a T. If we had 22 or less, we won. And we've been managing the puck. We've been defending well. We're going through some of these games, even the Toronto loss, even the Vegas loss. We literally, with our underlying grade A chances of staff, we're giving up 8-9 chances a game in some of these games. That's a recipe for winning. And is that winning every night? Are we getting results every night? No. But I think those are kind of foundations that can lead you to success. That's what I'm most excited about in such a short period of time.
You mentioned Ole. I covered him when he was in Pittsburgh. That signing to me made all the sense in the world. Just whether it was Morris or, as it turns out, he's played Philip Hronek a whole lot. What is that pair, Hronek and Mata, looked like? Because we've seen Hronek in particular looks like a different player than what we've seen from him the last couple of years. How much does Ole have to do with that, and how much what's the balance like there? Because those guys have been great.
I think Ole's a huge part of it. And Ole is an extremely simple and predictable player, and I think it's easy to play off. And for someone like Phil, who has been predictable and good in his own right this year, but I just think for him, just knowing where his partner's going to be at all times, where he's going to be on breakouts, they just support each other very well. So I think Ole Mata has been a huge part of Hronek's success.
Hey, with Perron, obviously he's coming off the 1,000-game milestone. We've been asking guys about him around the room. Sundqvist was saying the second he enters a room, he's there because he's always talking and he's loud. What is he always talking about? This has come up.
Hockey and his passion, and it's awesome. And he, I knew he was a pretty good player. Obviously, his offense, what he's done for our power plays, exceeded expectations. But his passion is real. Sometimes guys have to talk themselves into the fight. Some guys, you have to, as a staff, a little kick to get them going. Every night, he brings it. He's passionate. He wants to win. He has expectations about himself. He has expectations about the team. He has expectations on how we practice. And I think it's been eye-opening and great for this group. I mean, we were in game 2. And we're talking about being a calm bench, being a quiet confidence. And he was helping it. We were unraveling a little bit against New Jersey. And he was the first guy that, hey, everyone relax, calm down. And the guys did it. And then the next shift, he screamed at the ref. He screamed at a teammate for not giving him the puck. He's screaming at me. But that's him. Like, that's real. That's passion. And when someone comes off like that, I have all the time in the world for, and I think he has been a huge part of our early success.
You talk about the calm bench, and I know that's something I think you joked about it earlier this year. Early in your career, you were questioning every other call, and now you'll go several games without talking to a ref. How conscious is that, though, to set that kind of? It seems like you guys are a calmer team than what I've covered in the past few years.
Well, one, I think it's important. I've seen what it can do success-wise in Tampa, not only during the regular season, but those playoff games when it really mattered, when the line of winning and losing is so tight, and when you handle that adversity in a game 6 or a game 5 on the road and things are unraveling, you just when our bench is calm, when our staff is calm, I think it just kind of feeds through the team. And I talked about that with the group early on, and our leadership core actually came to me and brought up the fact it was needed. In the past here, there was times they felt they got caught up in the moment. And again, it's only 27 games, but we've made it a habit of ourselves that we're going to let things roll. We're not going to say anything to the ref. It's going to be done properly through a captain. You're going to have your moments where you're going to talk through things with a ref, or you're going to get emotional or excited, but manage those emotions. And for the most part, I think as a group, we've done that, and I think it's benefited us.
Awesome. You got anything else, Sean?
No, that's funny. I always, watching you guys in Tampa, that was always a vibe that I got from watching, whether it's John, the assistants. It felt like you guys knew when to hit the button at the right time when it came to whether it's ref stuff, all that. Is that something you carried over from the Lightning, or is that,
yeah, and pushing, you got to stick up for your teams at time. I've even had conversations with refs this year, don't take advantage of me because I don't yell and scream on every single play. So I do think it's something. I think it's part of team success. It doesn't happen all the time. Your emotions are going to get to you. I go back to a story as my first American Hockey League head coaching job. And, like Max talked about early in my career, like any young coach, I was emotional at times. I might have been the most calm coach in the first 25 games in Iowa. Worked hard on it, didn't say a single thing to the ref, as I'm still building relationships with refs too. Mm-hmm. And we had this game, and we absolutely were on the awful side of some calls, some inexperienced reffing. I didn't say anything. And my GM comes in and yells at me for not saying a word to the refs. He goes, well, of course they're giving us bad calls on night when you just sit there and admire their work. And I'm like, I just spent 2 years reeling this in, and now you're yelling at me for not yelling at the ref. So, but over 82 games in the long run, refs don't want to hear from me, first year head coach. I think in the long run, I'm still trying to build some credibility in a group, and as a team, we are too. And so far, it's only 27 games, but our group's been really good in that aspect.
I'm going to sneak one more in here. I remember earlier in the year, you talked about, obviously never supposed to have favorite players, but you had a particular affinity for Anthony Cirelli and Andre Palat in Tampa. Do you have a favorite Cirelli or Palat story that's fit for the podcast?
No, Cirelli was just that personality. One is twofold. He came in the league young. Mm-hmm. I'm doing a lot of one-on-one meetings, the developing, but my favorite Cirelli one was he was not allowed to cut his hair unless he okayed it through me or Brandon Point. And I know we joke about it, but not only were we helping Anthony mature as a hockey player, we were helping him mature as a young man. And one day he came in with an awful Amish haircut.
Oh no!
I'm sure it was a good haircut. I like any hair, but I remember Pointer comes in. He's like, "You talked to your boy yet? Did you talk to your boy yet?" And I'm like, "Oh no!" And then I come in and he comes in and he's got this awful haircut. And Pointer goes, I'm like, Pointer, that's on you. He's like, I thought he okayed it with you. So we're all pointing fingers. So from that point on, Anthony Cirelli was not allowed to get a haircut without being either approved by Pointer or myself. And I kind of joke, we had that same thing with Oscar Sundqvist this year. Oscar had the really long hair.
That's what I like. You talked about that with Oscar. Like this is where, like, how important it is to guard the haircuts.
We lost like our next 2 games, and maybe it's something else I got from John Cooper. But before our second Stanley Cup, Victor Hedman cut his hair, and Victor Hedman had the same Swedish long hair going, and Victor cuts his hair short, and Coop comes right in the office. He's like, well, we're done. We're not winning Stanley Cup this year. And it's just funny. It was just having a little fun with it. But that's the one Anthony Cirelli story that just love the kid because he's real. He's an unbelievable human being. So yeah, Cirelli was one of my favorites there.
Well, the obvious follow-up to that is, does Philip Hronek have a rule in place about the mustache then, given how well
he
he's
might
played?
have to get that back. Actually, his play continued pretty well after cutting it, but there was a little swagger spark to him when he had those handlebars. I think there's some truth to that. I think that's real.
Yeah.
That's great. Derek, good luck with the rest of the schedule. I know you got another full week coming up. There's no rest for the weary. It's Carolina. It's Minnesota. So good luck with the games and good luck with playing haircut police, because that's clearly a very important part of the job.
Not an easy job. Not an easy job. Thanks, guys.